Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. It's Monday, July 6th. Tomorrow is the opening ceremonies for the Festival of Whatchawant, a 10-day immersive pop-up installation in Baton Rouge. Super duper excited about it. If you've been following along, you knew this was coming. 2 weeks ago, I had a whole episode that was all about the Festival of Whatchawant. If you are planning on coming, if you're curious, if you want to know what it's about, what's going to be going on, what events are happening during the festival, the schedule, the calendar, all of the things, then be sure to tune into that episode 2 weeks ago, episode 89. And also click the link in the show notes down below and you can purchase tickets to the events. You can find out all of the details. So that is happening tomorrow. Today, I've got a really great episode for you, and I've got a guest here with me, Chloe. I told y'all last week that she was going to be here, and she's here. And if you haven't been following along week to week, let me give you a quick little overview of what's been going on so that you can follow along, because there's a lot going on, and there is a bit of a sequence to all of it. And first, so 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Festival of Whatchawant. That starts tomorrow. I hope to see y'all out there. That was about conscious creating. And then last week, we talked about the weird in between, raising teenagers when they're, between dependence and independence, when they're between childhood and adulthood. And that was the conscious choosing is what's happening at that stage. Well, today we're going to have a conversation with Chloe, and this is life between college and adulthood. This is a 21-year-old's perspective. Y'all already know Chloe. Chloe's doing this a podcast apprenticeship with me. This is not the first time Chloe and I have sat down together. You can tune into episode 77 to hear how it all began. But here we are back, episode 91. We're getting towards the end of her apprenticeship, and this is truly the conscious becoming. And this is what I wanted to talk to Chloe about. This is why I wanted a conversation I wanted all of y'all to hear, because she's at this stage after the teenage years, but not like fully into her adult years yet. She's a young adult. And this is a magical place to be too. It's full of potential. It's full of possibility. And it's full of lots of choices and decisions. And that's some of what we're going to be talking about today. And this is a nice little follow-up because, we started that podcast apprenticeship a couple months ago, and this was a 12-week apprenticeship. And like I said, we're getting here near the end. And so I'm sure y'all are curious how it's been going, what's been going on with Chloe, what's been going on with her life. How has this podcast apprenticeship affected her? What has it brought up? What has it opened for her? And what has it clarified for her? And that's what we're going to be talking about. So without further ado, I'm going to reintroduce Chloe, and I'm going to let her have a little moment to say whatever's on her mind before we start getting into the conversation. Chloe, your turn.
Hey guys, Chloe back. I'm really glad to be back on the podcast again, especially after the episode that Kelly and I did a couple months ago, like she said. It's actually crazy to think about it when you put it into words like that, how we're on episode 90 or 91 and we started with episode 77 together. So a lot has happened since then. That's like 2.5 months ago. Like, that's a lot of time where a lot of life changes have happened, and I've made a lot of personal decisions on the journey that my life is about to take. And I feel like everything Kelly is talking about with how you have to be conscious with your choices and who you really want to become, that's definitely where I'm at right now and really resonating with that in this era of my life. So, but also what everybody says about being 21 and still feeling like a teenager, it is true. I couldn't feel like any less of an adult right now, but I'm figuring it out. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting because that's not something I was actually thinking. A lot of people says that 21's kind of still being like a teen. But before we get into it, elaborate on that a little more because last week's episode was on the weird in between of being a teenager. And one of the things, if you guys listen, I said is maybe we never outgrow that phase. Maybe our entire life is a weird in between because we're constantly becoming. And then Chloe hops on today and says, I'm 21 and I feel like I'm still figuring it out. So tell me a little bit more about what it feels like to be in the body of a 21-year-old doing life at this stage.
Yeah, so I'd say for me, I have a really unique perspective on that because I've just always been the younger person in the room. Like, I started school really early because the age cutoff is different in California, where I'm originally from, and then I moved to Virginia to continue, and that's where the cutoff is much later. So like, I've always felt like it was me, the little young person in the room, trying to catch up with everybody else and kind of meet my match and like level up with everybody at the same time. So I feel like in that sense, it's always been that like I'm trying to be something I'm not. And now I'm like getting to an age where it's like, okay, but now I'm like reflecting on all that and I'm like, okay, but like I'm not that much older in the grand scheme of things. Like, I feel like I've spent so much of my life trying to be older than I've always been. And now it's like I'm 21. I graduated college 2 months after turning 21, and now I feel like life didn't even just stop, it just kept going. And now I have to figure out this transition so quickly right before I know it. Like, life is moving. So it's really interesting to try and navigate that phase of life when I still feel like I'm figuring out what it's like to be a teenager. But I mean, I guess that's just my youthful side coming out in my mindset. So maybe it's a good thing in the grand scheme of things that I still feel like a teenager because there's just so much more for me to figure out and become.
For sure. Well, what surprised you the most after graduation?
Definitely the fact, like I kind of mentioned, like life didn't stop, it just kept going. So I felt like after, like when I was anticipating graduation, I was very like, okay, I'm gonna graduate college and then life is gonna change overnight. I'm gonna be this adult, have my life figured out, start my career, like just know everything about everything. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I graduated in a really weird situation. Like, I graduated a semester early, so I graduated in December, and most people graduate college in May or like finish their schooling in the spring, and they have a little bit of a buffer period there. And I feel like for me, it was like, okay, I graduated college. I went home for 2 weeks to do Christmas and New Year's with my family. And then it was right back where it started, like going back to my college town, working for a gap semester, and then figuring it out from there. I don't know, it's been a really surprising chapter of my life, and I feel like it has not at all been what I expected it to be. I think when I started college in August 2022, I really expected to be here the 4 years. First of all, I'd never imagined to graduate college early, so that in itself really threw my plan off. The plan that I had in my mind that I just set for myself with no reason. I don't take it from me, don't set your life path when you're 17 and you just got to college in a state that you don't even know anything about. Like, don't do that. Be open-minded. But yeah, I mean, with that being said, I guess that's the best way to put it right now. Like, the biggest thing that surprised me after graduating college was how open-minded I needed to be because, like, if you haven't already listened to the episode of me and Kelly when we first started this thing, episode 77, I talk a lot about how I'm in a very liminal phase and like I just don't know what's coming for me. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it and the beauty of this phase of life. I don't know what's coming for me, and that can be really scary, like a really stressful thing when you hear it like that. You don't know what's coming, but honestly, that's something I've had to learn along the way, that like I don't know what's coming, but I always figure it out and the time is going to go anyways. So
There is a mantra that I love, I say often, and it feels appropriate to mention here. When nothing is certain, anything is possible. Uncertainty is not always a bad thing. And it can create lots of room for possibility and pure potentiality. And I also want to mention to the listeners and to Chloe, as a reminder, that Chloe is 21. Her prefrontal cortex is not going to be fully developed for another 4 years. So just like in last week's episode about teenagers who also do not have fully developed prefrontal cortexes, they are still acting on emotion and how they feel. They literally do not yet have the full capacity to think the same way an adult over the age of 25 does, because their brain is not fully developed yet. This is not like a weakness or a fault. It's part of human biology and when things sequentially happen. And so when the prefrontal cortex becomes fully developed, your decision-making process changes. It's not so emotionally attached. You can see things further ahead. It's more future-facing and not so in the moment. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. And which is why I also support her comment about not to plan out your entire career when you're or your entire life path when you're 17 and think that it cannot change, that this is what it is, because it will change. So what do you think feels different from what you expected? Not even just since graduating college, but a lots of things. Maybe let's break that down a little. What do you think feels different than you expected about, I'm going to say 2 things, about, yes, where you are in your life, but then also about podcasting?
yes. I feel like where I am in life right now, there's a lot to consider, a lot to think about, and like that's kind of what my head is right now. Like, you know that picture, I feel like it circulates a lot on social media where it's like someone's brain is just a bunch of squiggles, or like I don't even know. I can't even like communicate properly the picture I'm trying to paint right now, but basically someone's brain is just a bunch of squiggles and they can't get that out into something like of substance. And I feel like that's kind of where I was for a lot of college. Like I have an idea of what I want to do, like what I want to accomplish, but can I figure out what path I want to take for that, like what roles I want to hold to make that a reality for me? And I think that's something that really surprised me the most. And like I feel like the outcome of my college career is much different than I anticipated because of things like this. Like if you asked me when I first started college, or like when I completed my first semester of college, I would have been like, yeah, I'm so into journalism and like reporting and that side of things. Like the side of communications is like I'm really interested in storytelling. And sure, today that's still true. Like I love to tell stories, I love to create content, and that's just who I am. I know I want to be a storyteller, but 4 years ago I thought that meant working for a newspaper outlet or working for a broadcast station. Even though I don't really like being on camera, I still consider that for some reason. So I don't know, trust your gut, because I know for sure I don't want to go into broadcast today. So at least I know one thing. But now it's like I'm done with college, and 4 years ago when I thought I would be a journalist and cover a sports team from the outside looking in for the rest of my life, now I'm in a position where it's like that's not what I want to spend my life doing. Like I want more balance, I want more structure, and it's a hard reality to come to terms with. Like what I thought I wanted to do and what I spent so much time focusing on isn't actually where I am headed. And like I just didn't really know that I was kind of putting myself not on the wrong path. I would never say I put myself on the wrong path, because I think everything I've gone through and like everything I learned in my journalism education and all of that was so vital to like who I am. I still want to be a storyteller, and I still want to help other people tell their stories. So it's a weird situation. Like the balance is off in terms of, did I expect this? No, but is the outcome still kind of similar? Yes. And that kind of pours in over to the podcast aspect of it. Like at the beginning of this whole podcast apprenticeship, Kelly and I talked about how I just feel like I want to create something, but I don't know what. I don't have an outlet to express creativity in the way that I want to right now, and it was just a really weird situation where I just didn't know what to do with the thoughts in my head. Like I was kind of saying earlier, how everything in my brain is a big squiggle right now. That's kind of how it is with like being a creative in general. I feel like you have so many thoughts and ideas, but you don't know how to express that. You don't know when to put the pen to paper or like get the paint out. You know, like those are literal things obviously, but like in the sense of like creating stories or like just telling stories in general, anybody's story, it's hard to just sit there and be like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. As a creative, I feel like everybody knows that's just never the case. So in the beginning, when I was talking to Kelly about wanting to start a podcast, it was very similar. It was like, I don't quite know what I want to do with this, where I want to take this, what my future entails with podcasting. All I know is I'm interested in it, I want to learn, and there's no harm ever in just being receptive to learning something new. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now with the podcasting. Like I feel like there's so much to learn still, and like I'm never done learning, and that's forever going to be something that calls to me, like something new about how to construct a podcast. It's like I want to learn and I want to add that to my creative skill set. So yeah, a lot is just very in the creative space. I feel like a lot is very unpredictable, and that's just part of it, because I guess creativity is all about how you respond as well too. So I don't know, figuring it out and just hoping that I can still use the creative power in me to kind of regurgitate it into something like a podcast one day. That's always still going to be the goal, because I just love to tell stories and I love to create.
And you naturally shine in this type of setting is what I feel like. I feel like this is a place for you that even I get not feeling called to broadcasting and being on video. I get that. But this is a safe space to share your thoughts. I've witnessed you, I've watched you, I've been around you and seen the way that you handle yourself and carry yourself and are able to articulate your thoughts in a very clear way. I do believe that you would do well in podcasting. And Chloe and I both knew going into this, and if you listen to 77, you'll know that we said, because she wasn't sure when we started this if she was going to start a podcast right away or if this was something that would happen later. But we said whether she starts it right away or not, she's going to end this apprenticeship being ready to, being able to, having what it takes to confidently say, whether I start it tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now, I know what to do, right? But what she has decided, and this is what we're going to talk about a little, is that she's not going to do it right now. Kind of like she said, Chloe has decided instead right now to go to grad school. And I'm really excited for her. So do you want to tell them a little bit about that decision, maybe what you're going for and how this all happened?
Yes, I feel like this is a very big decision in my life. Like, of course, I did just graduate from college and like I have my bachelor's degree, and that's a great accomplishment. And I feel like taking that next step and going for my master's is something that's a really difficult choice to make, because not everybody is a fan of going back to school, and I would say that that was me once upon a time. I wasn't really a big fan of the idea of going back to school, but I took a step back like a couple months ago, around the time when we really started this whole podcast apprenticeship, probably around the time when we recorded that episode too. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like I've said many times before, I was in a really weird state. I didn't know what direction I wanted to go to. but I knew one thing's for sure. I kind of didn't want to be on the outside looking in for sports anymore. Like, if y'all haven't picked that up already, that's what I want to do. I want to work in sports, and I feel like the knowledge that I have from my communications background, like studying journalism, that will take me far, but not necessarily as far as I want to go myself. Like, I could get a great foundation right now with where I'm at, but I know that there's more that I can accomplish if I took this next step. So I've decided to go pursue my master's in sport administration. I'll be in Louisville this fall, and I'm really excited because I've never been to Louisville, never been to Kentucky, and you're probably like, why is this girl moving to Kentucky? She's never been there. Well, I made that same choice with Louisiana, and it worked out. So I guess I'm hoping I can strike gold twice and go really enjoy this new city. But regardless, that aside, I am so excited for the opportunity to just find myself in another place. I feel like that's something really underrated about going to college. Like, a lot of people understand you go and get an education, you find friends that are going to be in your wedding. Some people find the love of their life, and those are all like really big parts of going to college. But then it's like, take a step back, I've also been able to find myself and what I really enjoy, what I like to do as a person, what I don't like, who I don't like. Those are all very important things about going to college and figuring life out in that stage. But now I feel like I have a chance to kind of figure out who I am as a person in a more adult-centered, professional way. Like, I'm not going to be in a place where I've been for the last 4 years with the same people in the same environment, the same energy. This is a whole new thing, and I can really be intentional with what I'm doing. And I think it's really going to just push me in the direction I want to go. And like Kelly and I are always saying, this is all about being conscious about who you're becoming. And I feel like this is a really conscious choice for me to just commit to myself and commit to the fact that this will only do good things. This will only help me be better and more well-rounded as an individual. So I'm excited for the possibilities with that, but that doesn't mean that podcasting is kind of just thrown out the window for me, because I feel like by getting my master's in sport administration, I get that more internal look at like the business side of things and the structure of sports and how that all plays a role in the stuff that you don't see every day. Like, everybody sees the stuff on social media about sports, but like, what about the legal side of things and sport policy and all those things? Like, those are the nitty-gritty things that people don't really want to know, but I still think it's important. And like, as someone who wants to work in sports, of course that's the direction I want to go. And I think all of that combined, it would only help if I were to then pursue my podcast, say, after one semester of getting used to my classes or figuring it out for a month and then deciding to hop into podcasting. I think this will be something I can really have fun with, and it'll be a creative outlet for me to express myself while also finding who I am as an adult and a professional in my master's program. So I think I'm looking at this as like, I'm finishing out learning something here in Baton Rouge for one final time, and I get to take that learning with me, and it's mine forever. No one can take away the experience I had with Kelly and everything I learned from her and just about podcasting in general. It's stuff that I'll know forever, and now I can go into this next stage of my life and learn even more and bring that all together. And I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm really excited for what this could bring and just how much more this could grow for my own personal life, my personal brand, just everything. Just all good things.
I agree. And how many podcasters, I mean, I don't have the statistics, but I'm saying, how many podcasters out there have 2 recorded episodes about podcasting that were made during an apprenticeship, learning how to be a podcaster before they ever even realize that I'm going to be a podcaster? And so the fact that you have this becoming, an archive of becoming, is pretty cool, because that lays a foundation and kind of that becomes part of the archive of your own podcast down the road, because you get to, when you start, you're not just like, who is this woman? You're like, I've got some credibility here. This isn't my first rodeo. You know, I've been here, I've done this, I've learned. This is something I've actually invested time, energy, and everything into. And so that I hope gives you confidence, and I believe that it will. I believe that when the time comes and you do feel ready, it will be a knowing, and it won't be it there won't be any fear or confusion behind it. I feel like you will know when your body will be like, oh, it's time. I got something to say, it's time. And I know what to do. And so there won't be any hesitation because you will be fully prepared to do it. And that's exciting. What advice would you give your 17-year-old self? Or your 16-year-old self?
I feel like, okay, first of all, for being realistic, I would tell my 16, 17-year-old self to be more intentional with my college application process. Not that I regret at all how this panned out for me. I would do it all over again. I would do it the exact same way. But I kind of just wish back then when I was figuring things out, I wish I approached it in more like the way that I'm approaching going to grad school. I'm approaching it as like I get to find who I am and who I am as an adult and what I want to do with my professional life. And I feel like when I was 16, I don't even remember what I was telling myself. I just feel like I was trying to fulfill this expectation that I knew other people had for me. So if there was really anything that I wish I could like nail on the head for little old me, I wish I could go back and say, this choice is only yours and no one else's. I feel like not even just from like my family, but also other outside noise like high school classmates and coworkers, because I had a job in high school, and even like my high school counselors and support systems. I feel like there was kind of this, I felt an energy like, oh, I feel like this is what I want to do with my life. And then I felt that pushback from the people in my life. And I feel like little impressionable me, I took that too personal. I took it too much to heart, and I let it have too much of an impact on me then. But I'm glad that even though I know that that's how I felt then, I still was able to make this choice, because obviously like LSU wasn't always number one for me. It was kind of just, this is the best option for me. I'm going to go after it. And I'm glad that even back then I could at least make that decision and know this is the best decision for me, and not like this is the best decision for my family. This is the best decision for the rest of, I don't even know. Like the fact that I can't even think of who I would even consider back then shows a lot of like my personal growth and how intentional I try to be now. But I really just wish I could go back and tell little me that it's not the end of the world, that you're not going to Yale or Harvard or MIT. Like I remember when I was maybe like 9 or 10 playing fake school with my next door neighbor. I don't know why we would play fake school when we were literally in elementary school, but we would host our own fake little classrooms and like just teach each other random things. And we would always joke about how my next door neighbor, wanted to go to Yale and I would go to Harvard. And neither of us went to either of those schools. But it's just like, that's something so engraved in our minds at such a young age. Like, you have to go to a great college to be successful. You have to go to college, period, to be successful. And like, I feel like that had too much of an impact on my decision, and honestly made me feel a certain way about myself because I wasn't going to those big schools. But now it's like I sit back and I look at my experience at LSU, and I'm so thankful for my SEC school that other people probably think I went here just to party, and they couldn't be more wrong about that, but I don't even care because it's a decision that I made for myself, and I stand behind it 10 toes down. I would do it again, and I would tell myself back then to just believe in herself a little bit more for that decision, because I feel like I was a little doubtful taking the drive from Virginia to Louisiana at first, but it all worked out. So I just wish I would have known that back then, that it was going to work out in ways I just couldn't even imagine then.
Don't we all? But that's life. We don't know, and we have to trust and believe that things are always working out for us, and be open to it being even better than you imagined. So since last week's episode was about the weird in between with teenagers, parenting teenagers, and you were just giving us some advice you would give your teenage self, I want to switch it a little bit, because you were more recently a teen than I was a teen. And so you have a more recent recollection of the feeling of being a teen with your parents or caretakers there, being parents or caretakers while you're trying to be a teen. So I want you to share a little bit with the listeners about your perspective of what it feels like to be a teen. Now, knowing what you know now, you are a little older, so you can see the adult perspective a little more that maybe you didn't see as a teen. So I want you to shed a little light, give a little insight to what is something that you feel like some adults of teens may need to hear to have a little more compassion towards their teen. What is something, I want you to be a voice for the teenagers right now, saying, hey, parents, hey, guardians, don't forget this about me at this age. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm glad this is something that we're talking about, because I feel like I had a weird, everything was just weird about me going to college and the whole application process. Like, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm a first generation in my family. I definitely, neither of my parents got college degrees. They did like trade school and other things. I don't even remember off the top of my head, but I feel like I had a really different experience with it, because neither of my parents were aware of the process that it took to apply to college, and just like the whole situation of, okay, now I'm a senior in high school, I have to apply by this date and send in this money to apply. And like, one thing I remember dealing with my mom is that we didn't really understand FAFSA, and like we didn't understand the weight of that and like why it was important. And it was a heavy weight for both of us, but definitely heavier for me, because it was almost like, this is your thing, so you have to figure this out. And I think looking back on that, I sympathize with my mom, because like even now it's just like I still don't really know all of the stuff I need to know about going to college and like applying and all that stuff, but it's still like I knew way too little about the situation, and I was 16, dealing with everything that high school already throws at you, like awful friend groups and relationships, and classes suck, AP courses are awful, I don't even know how to study or take a test. Like, that's how I was in high school. Like, I literally don't know what I'm doing, I'm just going based off vibes. That was me as a person in high school. I was really just there to live life and get through the day. And I think, granted, I could have been more open with my mom and like just my family and my support system in general about like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. I don't know where I want to go to college. I don't even know what's important, like what I need to be considering. And I think looking back, it's just like, I know that my mom also didn't know, but it's like, instead of it having been a situation where we tackled it together, it felt very isolating sometimes. And I think I spent a lot of time just in my room figuring that out, and that made me not even want to pursue it. So I guess the advice that I want parents to know, and honestly even one day when I'm a parent and I have my kids going through college, I feel like I would want to hear this when I'm an adult. And it's just that we all really don't know what's going on, and it sucks, but we cannot know what's going on together instead of just forcing each other to figure it out separately. I think being collaborative in high school is much harder than I gave credit to back then. I wasn't the best kid. Like, I wasn't a great teenager, as all teenagers are. Like, none of them are really great. But I think that also had to do with a lot of internal doubt on myself, and like not believing that that was the right choice for me. And support goes a long way, motivation goes a long way, and just hearing it from the people in your life, like, hey, this is a really hard thing to go through, but you're doing it anyways, and that's important. So those words of affirmation go a long way, and I think it's a really underrated part of college. Like, it's nice to know that, sure, my parents can fund this, like, they can pay for my way through college, or they can help me find scholarships, or yada, 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 whatever. But it's more so, I just wish I heard more from the people around me, like, hey, this is a really hard thing and you're doing great. And I feel like not many people remember how important that is.
That might be one of your love languages, words of affirmation, but it's true. And it costs nothing to be kind, to throw a little, hey, I see you. I recognize you, and I'm acknowledging you, because that does feel good. Everybody loves to be acknowledged for their hard work. And so what advice would you give someone entering college? I know we've talked a lot about college. That's kind of where we're at. So what advice, aside from the things you've talked about, you're coming to college, perhaps it's in a new state like you, where you don't know anybody. So just when you're coming to college, what do you think? We've already said be intentional, take your course load seriously, because I know sometimes you can get to college after being in school and being at your parents', and then say you maybe move to a dorm or you move out on your own for the first time in your life. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's nobody making sure I wake up. There's nobody, like you don't have an adult that's like watching after you. And so you're just like, assume that means freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, no bedtime, no obligation to go to class. You just get to exist. And that can actually backfire. So that first little taste of freedom to some new college students can end up creating a problem for them if it's too much and they don't rein it back in, right? I've witnessed that happen to more than one person. So that was my little advice I'm throwing in is, guys, if it's your first time out on your own, yeah, have fun, love it. But also realize that you are now responsible for yourself. You might not have a parent or caretaker there making sure you clean the bathroom, wake up on time, do all the things you need to do, get to where you need to be. You got to be the responsible party for yourself now. So that's what I have to say. Now, Chloe, I want you to add your advice.
I have so much to say about this. I'm going to go with two things, though. Something that immediately came to mind, and it's something I've been saying a lot recently to all the people in my life, is that life will only lend you a hand if you reach one out first. That is something I've been trying to live by recently, hence the fact that I did this whole podcast apprenticeship with Kelly, and I'm going to grad school, figuring it out, whatever. Like, all of this is a product of me being like, okay, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that. I'm going to try it out first. Or I'm going to try it out anyways and see what happens. So when I say, like, life will only give you a hand if you reach out first, it's like the right things, the right people, the right places, they will come to you at the right time, but you have to be ready for it. You have to be willing to accept and, like, absorb what's coming for you. And I think a big part of, like, when we're figuring things out when we first go to college and you're by yourself and you don't know what you're doing, it's like, okay, what are you going to do in that moment? You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to do. There's so many options. They're almost endless. Are you going to sit there and see what comes to you and, like, let everything pass you by? Or are you going to try it all and see what fits? Something, I was at Chipotle the other day and I was getting lunch, and as I was walking out with my boyfriend, I said to him, have you ever heard that story about Michael Jackson and how he wouldn't go to sleep if he got an idea because he was scared that God would send it to Prince? And I think about that every day. If I didn't approach Kelly and was like, hey, I heard you talking about your podcast, I'm super interested in that, I would love to learn more, someone the next day could have done that very thing. And it's like, what are you willing to miss out on is kind of how I approach everything. And when I say that I'm not willing to miss out on anything, it changed my life, and it really changed how I approach everything. And I feel like as a creative, it also just made me so much more receptive to the idea of, like, yeah, this might not be for me, but I'm still a creative person even if this isn't for me. Like, I could have crashed and burned with podcasting and not known a single thing to talk about, or maybe it was awkward getting on a mic, whatever, but I'm still creative. I still tried it out, and now I know that that's not for me. Obviously, that's not how this went, and I'm still very interested in it, and I have a great appreciation for podcasting that I would definitely want to pursue in the future, but, I wouldn't have known if I just sat for my whole life being like, the idea of podcasting is really interesting. I'll just wait for it to find me. I went out, I sought it out, and that's like the whole point of college, I feel like. Like, I worked at the student newspaper at LSU, and a big part of why that is like, I had a guest speaker in one of my classes who was a journalism professor. He really struck my interest in journalism, and then I ended up learning that he was the advisor for the student newspaper. And like, it's those little things, like the right people, the right places. They will find you at the right time, and it's because I was able to go out of my comfort zone and be like, hey, I'm interested in journalism. Can I talk to you about it? And then we found out all of that about the student newspaper. So it's those little things you have to be willing to reach your hand out for, and life will reward you. And I think my second piece of advice would just have to be kind of simple, but learn to be understanding. It's hard to be an empath. Not everyone is capable of it, but if you can just take yourself out of a situation, take anything personal out of it, and take a step back and look at something for what it is. Like, maybe someone grew up a different way than you, and they weren't taught the same things as you growing up. Like, something that I'm thinking about myself right now is like, when I got to college, I didn't know it was the norm to like wash your rice before you make it. I don't know if you've ever, okay. Obviously the adult in the room knows that you wash your rice, but when I first started college, that was like totally new to me, like, because my Asian mother would make my rice for me all the time. So it's just like little things like that. And like, I think about that in the sense of other people, like, just the people around me. You meet so many different people in college, so many different cultures and just backgrounds. You never know what the norm was for their childhood in comparison to yours. It was normal for me to be outside every day and run around without shoes on, running in the mulch in the playground, whereas other people, like, the norm for them is like, I don't even know where that cup has been. Like, I'm not going to take a cup from the dining hall because someone else has used it, like, and off rip, it's like, that's really weird. Like, it's just a cup. Like, why aren't you just using the cup? But then it's like, okay, you don't know, like, maybe they have a really strict way of like the dishes in their house, or like they have a weird thing with germs. Like, you never know. And obviously there's a very silly, outlandish examples that I'm stating, but it's like, this can apply to so many things. Like, maybe someone doesn't know that you need to get out of the house and go in the sun and like just interact with people. Like, maybe that's not something they were pushed to do their entire childhood. What if they're an only child and they're used to being on their own? They like being alone. It's little things like that. And I feel like it really helped me when I was an impressionable freshman to know that everybody else is figuring it out too and doesn't really have everything figured out. So even though I didn't have everything figured out, it was comforting to know that I was kind of in the same boat with everybody else, just in a little bit of a different font.
Y'all just a bunch of people not knowing what was going on together at the same time.
Yep.
I like it. So I want to elaborate on something Chloe just said. When you were talking, your first of your 2 points, when you were talking about reaching your hand out. And I really like that, and I want to tie that back into the Festival of Whatchawant that starts tomorrow. If you listen to the episode 89, which is the whole one where I talk about the Festival of Whatchawant, then you heard me talk about what's happening on Saturday night. If not, listen to me now. So Saturday night is a free night. It's the vibe night. Like, no cover, no ticketed events. You're going to come, you're going to hang out, you're going to chill. And Camry's going to be there doing her bartending, her zero proof bartending with all her, I told you all about it. Listen or click on the link below to find out more about it. But here's the thing about Camry, and I want to tell y'all because it's kind of the same thing that happened with Chloe, same but different. Camry and I met at the book release party for the Letter It Out book that I was an artist in. And we talked. I'm like, I like you. We hit it off. We're going to do something together. We exchanged numbers. And so when I just realized I was going to be doing this festival, I'm like, I'm going to call Camry for Saturday night. And I sent her a voice memo saying, hey, tell me how your business model works. Because I didn't know. I had met her that night, but I said, I think I have something you might be a good fit for. Let me know how it works. She calls me back and she tells me how her business model works. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. I have hired bartenders in that sense before, but that's not what I had in mind for this event. I could use you in the future, but for this event, I was kind of thinking something more like this. But girl, I'll use you in the future. Well, she replied to that saying, oh, wait, that's something I've always wanted to try. I have this new idea that I've been wanting to do. Maybe I could debut it there. So what ended up happening was I said, how does your business work? When she told me, and it wasn't what I was looking for, I didn't just count her out. I was like, okay, I could use her for later. Let me file that. But then I just told her, well, this is what I had in mind. So she knew. But by doing that, we discovered that there was a mutual place in between, right? Where there was an overlap, I guess is what I'm saying. And so that's the sweet spot, kind of like with Chloe and I, there was an overlap where we had common interest, common trajectory, common goals that overlapped enough where it made sense for us to move forward together. And that's something I wanted to point out. And also, I just wanted to remind y'all that the festival starts tomorrow, and I hope y'all are going to be there. Now, I got one more question for you, Chloe. What does independence actually mean to you now?
I have a lot to say about this, I think, because I think even in the beginning of all of this, even before I graduated college, even before I even started college, I felt like I was just naturally like a pretty independent person. I'm the oldest daughter. I mean, I'm not the oldest child. I do have an older brother, but we have an 8-year age gap. So it was almost kind of like I grew up an only child, even though he was there. But in that sense, it was like I grew up very independent. I have a very different path than my brother. Like, he didn't go to college. He did his own thing. He's an artist, and I think he's into phlebotomy right now, which is like drawing blood. Phlebotomy? I think phlebotomy is drawing blood. I don't know. Anyways, whatever he's doing, much different than my path, and I feel like that's just a sign of independence in itself, like the fact that we went such different ways, but we're still so intertwined in that. Like, being independent is being able to know that there's no one true path and one true journey. It's just figuring it out and figuring it out for yourself. And that's definitely something I've learned more of in recent months. The fact that being independent is really about being okay being by yourself and finding what's meant for you on your own. And granted, like, independence isn't always just being alone. You can be independent and still be with other people or rely on other people for other things. Like, for example, I don't drive, and that's a very important thing anywhere, really. Like, we're not the most walkable country. Baton Rouge isn't the most walkable city at all. If you think it is, I wouldn't recommend. I think the furthest I've walked from my house is about 10 minutes down the street to the gym, and I honestly wish I didn't have to do that. So, anyways, regardless, that is something that I cannot be independent on because I just don't drive. Like, I feel like that goes without saying. Just, I don't drive, and I can't do that on my own. I can't get from point A to point B all the time on my own, and that requires being dependent on other people. Does that have a limiting effect on my overall independence as a person? Yes. Do I let that define the fact that I still feel independent everywhere else? No, because I feel confident in saying, sure, I depend on someone for this aspect of things, like, say, I don't know how to do this and I need an outside source or an outside opinion. That's common in everything. Like Kelly was saying with Camry, like, I'm just like speaking on behalf of Kelly, I guess, but Kelly isn't a bartender by trade. She's not like, she doesn't know what she's doing mixing drinks and stuff, and that's not to say she can't do the festival on her own, but it's like, hey, I'm still independently doing this project and I would love your help. And I think that's something that's really important about becoming independent and figuring out what that means to you. It's knowing that just because you want to be independent, just because you want to go about things in an independent way in your own direction, that doesn't mean you can't get help along the way or you can't reach out to other people. And I also wanted to go back on like the life will only lend a hand if you reach out first type of thing. Kelly now has shared 2 stories of people being like, hey, I'm really interested in this and I would like some help from you. Or like, oh, actually, that's something I've been interested in. Maybe we can figure something out together. Like, it's not just a one and done situation. Like, oh, someone already asked this woman to help with something else, that I can't ask for help there. Like, that's never going to be the case. I think people in general by nature want to help others. They want to share what they know. They want to share that they're educated in something or that they know how to contribute to something in a way that's impactful. People love being useful. So I think being independent, you feel like you can't ask for help and you think that other people helping others, that means you can't get help from them too. But that couldn't be any further from the case. It's just, I'm a very independent person and I know that I would have benefited better learning about podcasting through someone who is more knowledgeable in it rather than just looking up Google, how do I start a podcast? Like, I'd probably still be figuring out things that I don't even need to know if I went that route. Whereas going with Kelly and like actually getting to learn from somebody else in the space, it's like, hey, I'm just as much as a human as you. I struggle just as much as you. I'm gonna be real with you. This is what is hard. This is what I want to figure out, and this is what I want to accomplish. So, all in all, independence, sure, that means doing things on your own and doing it your own way. But it also means knowing when it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help all the time.
100%. That's a lot of wisdom from 21 short years of life. So I'm glad you said all that. And it's one thing that I will also, it's a good time to mention, because that's something, listening to you talk about independence from that lens, that perspective was interesting, because I can kind of add to that a little. So I've been single for over 10 years now. And you know, that's interesting because from the outside, people will also kind of have this, not everyone, but some people can assume, oh, she's independent. She doesn't need anyone. She thinks, and you got to be careful with that narrative because that's not completely true. And when people start to assume, when they see someone like, say, someone like me who's chosen to be single for over 10 years, and it's like, oh, she's Miss Independent. She does everything herself. She thinks she doesn't need anyone. No, that's not the dynamic. That's not the dynamic at all. I mean, I'm choosing something and I am independent, but just like Chloe said, that does not mean that I don't still, I 100% envision myself in a relationship. I'm still absolutely choosing companionship. I have no intention of spending the rest of my life single, doing it all by myself, right? But what she's saying, I have an amazing support system. I have such great friends, and I have no problem asking. I'm very independent, and I very much do not try to do everything on my own. So that the misconception that independence means doing everything on your own, I'm really glad that you touched on that, Chloe, because that's something that people do need to hear, because there can be this confusion when you hear the word independence, that means like, oh, you're independent. You do it all on your own. That's not what it means. It's like Chloe said. So, okay, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up here. So this is Chloe and I, like we said, we're getting close to the end of the apprenticeship, but we do have we're in arrears, meaning even though our time together is almost done, your time receiving content for the remainder of the 24 episodes is still happening. So keep following the podcast on Instagram at Dreamed It Then Real Lifed It, because that's where we're sharing the apprenticeship series. And then be sure that you follow the podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you can get all your favorite episodes are really easy to access. And make sure that you leave a rating and a review. Take a screenshot of your favorite episodes, share them in your stories, text it to your friend, send it to somebody you know if an episode touched you, if it moved you, or if the show in general resonates, send the whole show to somebody. Say, hey, I got this podcast I love. Check it out. I appreciate it if you do that. And Chloe would appreciate it too. So we're going to, one last time, invite you to come out to the Festival of Whatchawant, the 10-day immersive pop-up installation, 11445 Coursey Boulevard, Suite M. That's in the Coursey Place Shopping Center in Baton Rouge. I'm going to be there July 7th through July 16th. 23 ticketed events, workshops that you can come and do, ranging from under the categories of create, move, embody, reflect, all kinds of things. And it will end. Oh, I got to say this too. It will be ending on the 16th. So in a couple days. And that evening is the opening night reception for the Tell a Vision art show at the Baton Rouge, the gallery downtown. It's on the tip of my tongue. The shop, the Arts Council, the art gallery downtown. Our opening night reception is on the 16th. And come see the reception. I've got my debut piece from the second generation of Mis Hombres. So the second generation of Mis Hombres, the whole new collection is coming out this year, and this is the first of the 13 pieces in the second generation of Mis Hombres, and it's going to be debuting at that show. So I hope y'all come out and see that as well. And thanks for tuning in, Chloe. I'll let you sign us off. How about that?
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm super, super grateful for everything. Like, I know that this is just like the second and final episode on the actual podcast, but this behind the scenes experience has just been more, it gave me back tenfold from that conversation that I had with Kelly just in the, what's it called, the Roar Plaza right out front of the library that we're recording in. Like, it's crazy to think about how much changes in such a short amount of time, and I guess I'll leave y'all with that so much can change in such a short amount of time, and you really never know what could come from just one conversation. So thanks for listening to our whole conversation today, and hope you really enjoyed it, and go back and listen to more.
See y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_Whatchawant. Or visit dreameditThenRealLifedIt.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.